Good morning, everybody. Usually when you get to version 7.0 of something and you look and you realize it's not much different from version 2.0, it's time to take stock. And throughout this conference and the conferences over the last 5 years around audience measurement, we've been looking at new ways to measure audiences. But when I look at them, I can't help thinking that they're based on principles developed when technology was much less advanced. Principles developed before technologies like ad serving, or the cloud, or color television. And I think that new technology, the technologies that we've yet to harness in our industry, they give us the power to really transform audience measurement and transform media management to something much, much more powerful. But in order to do that, I think we have to move beyond a model where we're trying to retrofit digital to make it look like traditional media, and instead get to a place where we're using the power of digital to transform all media. So I want to start by telling you a story. And not too long ago, I was working in a media agency for our largest client, and I was leading research. And we were marketing a heartburn drug. And we spent millions of dollars in research homing in on this one target, who we called Joan. And we knew everything about Joan. We knew what she ate, we knew how she interacted with her family, what she did on the weekends, what content she liked to consume. And in fact, we knew so much about Joan that we actually placed a life-size cutout image of Joan, and we put her in our meeting room. So every time we were having a discussion about ideas or media strategy, we could look over at Joan and we could decide whether those ideas would make sense to her. But then, a really funny thing happened, because the brand gave most of its money to our TV buyers. And our TV buyers ended up going after a completely different target, who they called 25 to 49-year-old women. And they probably did reach Joan, but they most certainly reached a lot of people who weren't like Joan at all. And I think this really hurt the efficiency and the effectiveness of our media plan. It's almost like they ripped out our image of Joan and put this kind of fuzzy image of a generic woman and put that in our office. And that's really the way most of our media dollars work today. It's like if you went to your doctor with a problem and your doctor gave you a bunch of really complex tests and a detailed diagnosis, and then the treatment he prescribed was bloodletting. Because, media management, in a way, it is like bloodletting. It's a crude and primitive solution to what really is a large variety of complex problems. So today I'm going to talk about 4 big things that I think are wrong with media management, and actually 2 I share with Erwin in his previous speech. And when I talk about media management, I'm talking about the whole process. I'm talking about planning and buying and reporting. And I'm also talking about the way media companies can package and they can sell their audiences. And obviously, audience measurement is core to all that. So the first problem is that it's really crude. The second problem is that it's managed in silos. The third is that the process itself is fragmented and disconnected. And finally, the process is about eyeballs, not business results. Now, you may have heard about Google has recently announced some audience measurement initiatives itself. And despite what it says in the program, I'm actually not going to talk about those efforts today. Because frankly, there's nothing I can share with you that you can't read online. So if you're interested, I suggest that you Google it. But I will say that these efforts and related industry efforts and some of the things that we're talking about today can help brand advertisers better integrate their media online and offline. But I think that we need to do, and we should do, much, much better than that. I think we need to build a completely different system. And it's a system that takes the power of digital and transforms all of media to make it more effective and more efficient. And you know, working at Google, I've been inspired by a lot of the technologists and engineers that I work with. And I've been inspired by this idea of the data stack. And the data stack is the way, I guess, most technology businesses build their data centers. And the way it works, it's a setup where you basically can build up computers and add power and add memory and data, but you're not interrupting or disturbing the logic or the integrity of that entire system. And I think we have an opportunity today as an industry to start thinking about building our own media management stack. So a stack where we can all contribute our own data, media companies, agencies, and advertisers. And I think that this stack, with online data as its base, can really help us solve the 4 problems of media management today. So let's start with the first problem, and that's that media management is so crude. And we really, you know, we continue to dumb down our audiences like Joan, and we end up with these kind of incomplete and fuzzy targets. And, you know, the technologies that we use now that have been developed over the last 50 or 60 years, the technologies like diaries and like panels, they're never going to be big enough or discriminating enough for us to create and target and reach audiences like Joan. But online, we have huge amounts of data. We have data about what people are doing, what they care about, what their passions are, what's relevant to them, what they need, what they're saying about brands. And of course, respecting privacy and user consent, we have what John Battelle has called a database of intentions. And this database of intentions, I think, can serve as the base and the framework for a very sophisticated way of looking at audiences. So for that reason, I think it can be the base of our stack. The second problem that Professor Gottlieb also pointed out is that each medium is now planned in its own silo. So we have different planning systems, we have different buying systems, we have different reports. You know, I'd be willing to bet that media agencies single-handedly keep fax machine companies in business. And you know, it's really a waste because, you know, we have all of these separate teams, you know, separate planning teams for TV and print and for online, separate buying teams, different sales reps calling on us about different media. And most importantly, though, besides this inefficiency and this waste, the biggest waste is that we can't optimize efficiency, we can't optimize effectiveness across media, really with any acceptable level of precision or accuracy. I think that our stack can help fix this. So what I think we need to do is we need to build on top of online data, and we need to develop a single source panel. And this single source panel is going to tell us about the behavior across multiple screens, including television. So what that allows us to do is for us to take the online data and inform our television planning and our buying, making it more sophisticated. And that television data can be married with online data so that we can start to look at audiences across media. And I'm sure that that's going to greatly improve our understanding of consumers and our ability to market to them. The third problem, I think, with media management is that it's really fragmented. So when you go from planning to buying to reporting, you have all of these disconnected steps from one to the other. And online, we have a really unfortunate case where the media companies don't even have access to the same data that planners do, so there's a disconnection between what's being bought and what's being sold. You know, and it really makes the process a whole, you know, big mess. And I told you what happened when we went from Joan and we gave over that money to the television buyers. But I have to admit that that process for online advertising wasn't much better at all. So here's what happened when our online planner, and let's call him Pete, when Pete was trying to reach Joan in internet advertising media. So first of all, Pete, what he did was he developed a watered down target because he knew he could never find Joan in his planning tools. So he probably started with something like 25 to 49-year-old women. Maybe there was enough sample for people that had heartburn in the last 6 months, but that was probably it. And then what he did is he sorted websites based on composition, index, and reach. Now this is really crazy because Pete's not going to buy the whole audience of any of these websites. He's going to buy impressions. So this data, in a way, is really irrelevant to what he's going to buy. But for some reason, our online tools still treat websites and other digital media like they were magazines. And then what Pete did is he put together a recommendation for the client. And it was based on a really complex set of criteria. Which sites were biggest, which sites were easiest to work with, and who bought Pete the best lunches. You know, you can do amazing things in Excel. It's pretty amazing. And then finally, Pete executed the buy. Now, of course, the websites on Pete's plan, they didn't know about Joan. They may have known about that watered down target, but frankly, they couldn't really do much about that at all because they didn't have access to that data in Pete's planning tool to package to target their audiences. So all they could do was just basically spray and pray. And at the end of the campaign, when the campaign ran, Pete got a report. And the report was based on yet another data set. And if he wanted to, he could use that data and punish the websites for not giving him his intended target. But more likely, what Pete probably did was just ignore that report because it was so irrelevant to everything that had gone on before in that process. So, you know, I guess online advertising is better than TV buying. So it's better than bloodletting in a way. I like to think of it like the application of leeches. You know, it's the same principles of bloodletting, but it's a little less messy. You know, with the stack, Pete really could have used the same data in his planning, in his buying, in the reporting. He could have shared that data with the websites so that they could target that media. And Pete wouldn't have to sit in this silo of online. He could actually look across multiple electronic media and see where he could find the most efficient way to reach Joan. And the reporting for that campaign would be based on that same data in the stack, and so there would be accountability to the intended target all the way through. Now, we talked about the stack being this multimedia instrument. And it is true that today television is not targetable. At least national network television is not targetable. And you know, the thing is, the technology to do this actually does exist. But somehow the will to create television targeting at scale and to make it available to advertisers, that will does not yet exist. But I think that gives us even more reason to push for a better model for television. The fourth problem in media planning today that I mentioned is that it's not aligned to the results that marketers really care about. It's still about eyeballs and not business outcomes. And you know, I must admit that when I hear talk about rating points and rating points being a measure of value, it really mystifies me. Because you know, we act as if you know, in the age of DVRs and multitasking and frenetic lifestyles, that we're all watching TV the same way we did during the Truman administration. And to treat the rating point as a stable measurement of value, to me, it's like, you know, putting all of your 401k in the drachma. It's just not a very safe way to think about what is valuable consistently. But that's really not the biggest problem. The biggest problem is that ratings are about eyeballs. And who really cares about eyeballs? Who wants eyeballs? CMOs don't get paid to deliver eyeballs. They can't brag to their board that they reached a certain number of people in that year. That's not how they keep their jobs. They keep their jobs by delivering business results. And so eyeballs, they're only meaningful if they correspond to business results. And you guys know as well as I do that except at the very, very macro level, we usually have absolutely no idea if our media and our eyeballs do correspond to the business results that advertisers want. So, you know, we have this whole system of buying and selling eyeballs when what the customer wants, that the advertiser really wants, is business results. And because of this mismatch between what the customer wants and what we're giving them, it seems to me like that it's a system that's pretty ripe for collapse. I think what's powerful about this idea of a stack is that it already puts performance, it puts behaviors at the core. So it's not about eyeballs, it's about people and people's behaviors. And because it's extensible, you can add things. You can add things like shopper card data, car registration data, CRM data. You just build on top of the stack. And because the stack is integrated from end to end, because we built it with one process and one logic, then our reporting actually makes us smarter about Joan every time we invest in media. So this is the 5th ARF audience measurement. I guess there was no 1.0, went straight to 2.0. And I'd like to think ahead 5 years to audience measurement 12.0. And I think it will be, you know, really sad on that day if we still have planners like Pete that are using tools based on principles that predate the Apollo space program. I think it'll be sad if our TV buyers are still using these blunt pencils, these very fuzzy demographic targets, when we can do much, much better than that. But you know, I think the saddest thing of all is if we spent the next 5 years, if we look back and we spent all that energy, time, and effort trying to make digital media look like traditional media, instead of spending our effort using the power of digital to transform all media. So I don't like to be sad, and so I hope that at Audience Measurement 12.0, you know, we're talking about a new way to do business. You know, one that's more rewarding, one that's more interesting, and one that's more effective for advertisers. Thank you very much.